so what we're going to talk about today, especially design instruction based on our kiddos' IEPs. We want to make sure that our IEPs are accessible to the new learning environment. We have to remember about what the students are going to be needing within that classroom environment, their new environment that they're going to be looking at. We also want to make sure that it's reasonable and appropriate, that we have to look at what do the parents need. Some of our kids may need help from their parents. So what can they use in their homes to help? What kind of manipulatives may they have? What type of reinforcement schedules can they use? We also have to make sure that all of their IEPs are addressed in their activities. And that includes them being able to do their social as well as their academics. And then we're going to have to make our best good faith effort to provide high quality services to the students so that they're able to get what they need. We also need to realize that a lot of our students, they're going to be very nervous. They're used to having that one-on-one attention from their teachers, being able to look at them. So we want to make sure that we just ease their stress, especially this first week. It's more about making touch points with them, making sure we tell them what their expectations are for this week, and making sure they know how to contact the teachers, either through email, through Google Meet, however that you're contacting your students. We need to figure out how can we do that. We want to incorporate videos, online games, tactile licenses, websites. As an EC department, we've created many resources that you can use in order to help the students. There's also a lot of virtual field trips that they can take because we realize that they're not going to have that access while they're at home. So we want to make sure that they can access that in their home environment. Some other things that we need to think about when we're talking about specially designed instruction is we need to really look at how do we break our assignments into parts. I realize some classrooms are going to be using Google Classroom, especially if we're used to being in a co-teaching setting. Can we assign a different assignment to our students in that classroom so that they're getting the same information, learning the same material, but at the same time, they are getting to see how to go about it. We may have to really break our instructions down and do them step by step. An assignment might take them 4 or 5 days because we may have to start with breaking that assignment into one part at a time. On Monday, do this, Tuesday, do this, Wednesday, do this. We're also going to have to provide many graphic organizers to assist them in understanding those processes, provide visuals, and additional examples so that they're not just being asked to learn just from one example, that they're being asked to see many different examples. We also have.
Hey, Julie, we had a request in the chat. If you could just talk a little slower. They are really into what you're talking about.
All right, sure will. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so one thing we want to do is when we're looking at our visuals and our additional examples is we want to make sure that we are providing them very specifically with how to go about doing a problem. So if you have a math example, or if you have a reading example, then you have multiple examples of that. We use our visuals just like we would in a classroom. It may be that we're finding pictures. We may be able to use different resources that we have at home that we can take actual pictures of what it may look like. We may even have to break a math problem down and where we do one part of it, show them a picture of that, do the next part, show them a picture of that. And those are going to be things that the kids are going to need because we're not going to be sitting right down beside them to do that with them. As far as like calm down menus, social stories, visual schedules, things that we use every day in the classroom, we're going to have to alter those so that they can be used within the in their home environment. A calm down menu may look different. It may be that they can walk up and down their stairs a couple times if they're starting to get anxious. They can walk outside. And of course, you're going to have to work with parents too to see what's allowable because we don't know what everyone's home looks like. Social stories. We create social stories for kiddos all the time, except that we look at how that they look in the classroom and not how they're going to look in their home environment. So again, we're going to be needing to contact parents if at all possible, find out what their home environment is. What can they do different? It may even be, if there's a possibility, there may be some parents that'll be willing to send us pictures of things in their home environment that we can put within the social story for the student and then get that to the parent. Visual schedules are important. We need to make sure that the kids understand what's expected of them. Many of our kids need that step by step so that they know. And it may be, okay, at 9 o'clock, I get on my Google Meet or I do this assignment, from 9 to 9:30. At 9:30, though, I may need a break. And I think we have to really realize that the kids are going to need more breaks. They're not going to get a natural break. If you're sitting at a computer, I know many of you have been working from home too. When we're sitting at our computers at home, you don't get those natural breaks that you do kind of in the workplace. So it's the same thing for the kiddos. They're not going to have another student asking a question or another student doing something that kind of gives them a natural break. So we need to put those natural breaks into the schedules for the students and realize that it doesn't have to be a 9 to 3:45 day or a 7:40 to 2:20 day, that we can kind of base it on what the kids need to do. We also want to make sure that we give prompt feedback and redirect their attention and reinforce positive behaviors. I know Laura Ferguson is going to be talking a little bit more about this in a little while, but we want to make sure that they understand that what they're doing is important, that it's not just here's an assignment to do. And then if we don't ever give them feedback on those assignments, they're not going to see the importance and they're going to want to go about maybe quit doing the work, and that's going to cause more issue at home. Or how can we give them positive reinforcement so that they want to keep doing their work? So it's about that feedback and allowing them to do that. Some ways we can do concrete ways to provide instruction, or that we can ask for the kiddos to provide what information they know. We can have them create posters. They can create a poster about what we're learning about, and they can take a picture and send it to us, so that we can understand, are they understanding the processes of what's going on? They can draw a picture, versus doing a written assignment, especially for a lot of our kiddos that, they get a scribe. What else can that look like? They can draw a picture. They can use puzzles. They can do things that they maybe have at home to make like a diorama, which is kind of an old-fashioned word, but something that they can still create to show us. When we think about manipulatives, we're worried about the students, but many of the students have many manipulatives at home. Like if you look around your kitchen, you think you have macaroni noodles, cereal blocks, puzzle pieces. Some families with candy, especially with Easter coming up, they might have jelly beans, things like that they can use to count with. It just needs to be a tactile surface. It doesn't have to be a Unifix cube in order for them to count with, but there's ways that they can go about finding things within their home environment to help them. When we talk about our little ones, our Ks, our pre-K kiddos, let them find letters, let them find numbers out of books, magazines, games, things that they have within their home. Have them one day find how many A's can you find? Ask them if they can look at a book that they have at home, or even a game that they're playing. Can they find a particular color? And it's about teaching parents also, how do you get them to recognize those things so that the parents are asking the appropriate questions? So we also want to remember to kind of give parents specific questions, maybe to ask the kids, and not just say, oh, tell them to go find an A, and they just say, okay, here's an A. So you want to be able to really give them specific questions about, that A. Well, what does that A stand for? What does it look like? Can you find another A that looks the same? Is there a difference between the capital A and a lowercase a? So you want to be able to do that in order for the kiddos to understand what the purpose is of what they're doing, but also to give the parents ways to go about doing these activities with the kids. The parents are not teachers. They don't have those same strategies that we maybe have learned in school.
Julie, I'm going to add real quick. This is Elaine. So several of our choice boards have these very, very options for students to do. I know my daughter went on a letter walk the other day, and being a special ed teacher, she's still working on some letters. And I said, why don't you just trace these with your hand, because we all know that there are different fonts, and that is something that trips some of our students up as far as identifying these letters. So have them trace those letters that they see, of course, in numbers. So I love this, but some of those choice boards, week 1 and week 2, had different things for just exactly what you were just talking about. So this is awesome.
Yes, and I agree, because I looked through the choice boards too and actually helped a few people add some things. So I think they're an excellent way for the kiddos to be able to also pick and choose. And so it also gives them that ability to kind of have control of what they are doing. You know, when we talk about our teachers that are co-teaching, our ECE teachers need to be planning with our general education teachers just as they have been doing. We also need to review those lessons and activities. We need to figure out as ECE teachers where we need to put in that additional information, or if we need to modify the lesson accordingly. You know, hopefully with the Google Meet, both teachers will be able to be online at the same time with the students, so they'll be able to give that explicit information and how to practice that skill while they're online with the students, and maybe with the whole class, because it would be no different than when they're in a general education class co-teaching. Many times the information that the ECE teacher is sharing helps not only our ECE students, but it also helps our general education students. So we want to be aware that we are providing that SDI and those SASs based on the student's IEP. And many times that's a reminder to parents at home that if our kids get a scribe, if our kids get extra time, if they get a reader, what does that look like within that classroom? Now, you would not want to do that with the full group. That's going to be a private phone call or message to the parents to make sure that they understand what those kids get based on their needs. If the packets are going to be a little bit harder, because I realize we're doing more generalized packets, but that's where our ECE teachers need to know which students are doing packets, and they're going to need to send that additional information home somehow. And so I know we're still working on a plan as to what that can look like. And so I guess I can say right now to stay kind of up to date, but to be thinking about the additional examples, the visuals, the modules, the graphic organizers. I think those are things that many of our teachers do kind of right when you're on point with a student, but sometimes when we have to think about it offbeat, off the path. But we will continue to do that with the students, and we're just going to have to think about what would I provide the student if I was in the classroom with them. What would I be doing with them different than what the other students are getting, so that they're able to get that information? And so we have to really think about each one of our students, and as we know, no two students are alike, so many times that's going to look different for each student. Our special class teachers, you know, they are going to be developing lessons for many students. A lot of the special class teachers have 8 or 10 students in their classroom, and they're going to have to be thinking about what I typically do during this time with them. I may be doing small group, and I'm going to be incorporating those visuals and those step-by-step directions and models. And we're going to have to break many of our assignments into segments. I think too, as teachers, we need to realize that, hey, we might not get to everything that we thought we were going to get to for the rest of the school year. So we're going to have to really prioritize those skills. We're going to have to look at those essential standards, as well as the students' IEP goals, to determine what do they specifically need in order to get the information for next school year. And a big thing that we've been talking to KDE about is a documentation. You know, that is the key to our service. We want to document the date and length of service, what SDI and SAS has provided, what type of delivery method we used, any type of student responses, and also the data collection. We want to make sure that we are that we want to make sure that families truly understand everything that we are doing, so that they're not surprised. You know, as much as we can give them what we've done so far, what may be upcoming, if there's a specific time that we're doing Google Meet, when that date and time is going to be. And we just need to keep track of what we're doing. Sometimes that maybe what we're completing for the students up front. How am I modifying this lesson? How am I accommodating this lesson? That's part of the SDI that I'm providing. So that is what I'm going to be documenting. It's not always about the face-to-face as much as also about what am I doing for the lessons ahead of time.
Hey, Julie, I wanted to make sure that I point out, so when you're doing those Google Meets, if you go ahead and go to hangouts.google.com, it actually will give you a record of all the time that you have been in a video, or if you use that chat feature. So that's a great way to document the time that you have been able to do that face-to-face, or even connecting with a family via the phone feature on Hangouts or on the chat method. So I love the documentation too, and it's very important for us to make sure that we are meeting that IEP goals.
Definitely. Thank you for that. One thing that we have for support, and this is just our JCPS, the ECE support, you're going to do the NTI Teacher Toolkit under Teaching and Learning Resources. Click on the box ECE, and we have developed resources pages with planning and instruction just to help our teachers also, so that you have some supports to go to. I know I only have a couple more minutes, and I know you all talked about this a lot with Google Classroom, but this is just a good reminder that, not every student has to get the same assignment. And so just reminding that we can choose, our particular ECE students if needed, to give them kind of an optional assignment or one that they can do versus what the rest of the class is doing. And then making sure that we just maybe name them a little bit different so that we don't forget what we've given those kids is a big thing there. And then data collection, during online lessons, we can use work samples that they have produced. We can provide parents with checklists and rubrics. We can offer students rating sheets and self-reflections. We can give checklists for vocational tasks. We can ask them to read a passage over the phone or a video call. Of course, taking anecdotal notes. And I know next Monday, I'll be presenting again, and I'll get into more about the data collection strategies with especially design instruction, so that we understand how to keep our data for our IEP goals, because that's something that even though we're on doing NTI, we can't just stop. We're keeping our data and making sure that our students are progressing. One thing we're hoping that we can have maybe some parents take photos of completed work and send it to us for data monitoring. If it's offline, we still may be able to get through to the parents on phone so that students can read to us or get information that way. We will also be able to maybe figure out a way to pick up those packets that those students have been working on at home, and then figure out ways to give them feedback for their offline lessons. Have any particular questions that I can answer for you, that is my email address, just like everybody else's, julie.donlin. I'd be more than happy to answer your questions. I know many people have my phone number. You can also call, and I would be more than happy to ask. Now, Laura Ferguson.
All right. So glad I got everything set up. So as Julie, I'm going to kind of piggyback on a lot of what Julie has said, but I'm going to go over some reinforcement strategies for our students today. And just a quick reminder, we know that as we're working with our ECE population of students, that more than likely we're using a ton of reinforcement. When we do group instruction, we don't typically think about how much we have to stop and reinforce those students. But just as a quick reminder, anything that follows a behavior that makes it more likely to happen is what we kind of use as reinforcement for our students. And that's kind of what we have to share with our families is, they may think, oh, I'm going to give you a little worksheet and this may motivate you to work, but kind of making them think, okay, what are our students asking for? I want computer, I want these things, and using those as motivation for our students. So when we're looking at that, and whether we're talking about making a video for our students, or whether we're talking about doing live instruction, whatever we're using, how can we kind of put those reinforcement strategies within those different types of instruction? So thinking about if we're video recording or we're doing live, taking those moments to use praise, praising our students for the work they have done throughout, and using that praise throughout our instruction. Also thinking about how we can do first then and choice boards and token systems. And that's kind of a few of the things I'm going to go through today, how we can use those in instruction for our students. So the first one, thinking about praise. And when we think about our students in our classrooms, our students often need a lot of praise. So what we want to think about is, am I using praise? Am I giving them a reinforcer or a behavior-specific praise? Like, I love the way you finished that after so many responses from our students. Because if we think about it, we're looking at our students, and when we're doing group instruction, those students are maybe used to longer links without praise or reinforcement. But now we're looking at students who are in that one-on-one based instruction. So we need to think about, can they do 2 problems before, maybe if we're recording, we put in I love the way you're working, keep it going. That's nice writing. Or if we're doing live, using that praise throughout. One of the ways that I kind of did it when I was teaching and I work with students is kind of setting a reminder on my phone. I need to praise after so many minutes, or I need to praise after so many seconds, and making sure that my students are contacting that praise. And that's also a great kind of reminder for parents and other individuals to make sure they're praising as well. Because as we know, in this time, we can all be overwhelmed. We all have a lot of things going on in our house. And if we're modeling that behavior, maybe that will trickle down to the other types of environments these students are in. I love the reminders on my phone. When I was trying to set up some things for students, I would often set that reminder. It would help me. You can also think about working in praise after so many problems or directives. And you can use praise to reinforce the beginning and end. I love that we're getting started. You can go over rules and routines before you get started, and work in praise there. And then at the end of activities, reinforce those students with praise for finishing those assignments. And that's great behavior to kind of make sure those students are accessing positive reinforcement for completing their work and assignments like they do in the classroom every day.
Laura, I want to just interrupt you just real quick. That praise is very important. I have several kids at home, and they received some actual physical mail from teachers. And I think that as well can be added to your slide, because that will mean so much too at this time.
That's an excellent example. Thank you for adding that in. And yeah, so when we think about that, we can also think about those students who need that kind of quick reinforcer to know when it's coming. And so I've had parents and teachers, you can make this on a sheet of paper. You can share this on your screen like we're doing now, but kind of using that first then model. First, like Julie had said before in her session, we're going to try to break down this material, break down this instruction. So you may have only a minute of instruction, and then first we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this. And really everything has to be individualized based on our student needs. But even on a little dry erase board, if it's at their home, on a chalkboard, on chalk outside, you can do a little first then, and just let parents kind of model that for parents, model that for the student, that, okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this next activity. It can really motivate our students to get through the materials. It can motivate them to start the task, to understand that they're going to access their reinforcers, and it can cue them to begin instruction. And it also kind of reminds us and parents to use that first then language throughout, which is very important, to let them know things are coming to an end, we're getting finished, we're close, you're getting ready to access reinforcement, it's coming up quickly. The other thing that we kind of make and we use at schools, and Julie has talked about sending these things home, which is important, or kind of makeshifting your own, which is kind of easy. Parents may not have Velcro or may not have other things if they weren't sent home with them. But, these are just some examples of using those choice boards. Before you even start an assignment, you may bring it up on the screen and, have choices. What do you want to select? These are some of the things we can work for, reminding parents how they can choose those items and they can mark it off as they use them throughout the day. These can be written pictures, they can be words, they can be, pieces of Cheez-Its that you tear off and put on a little board and they select what they want to work for. But this can view them to let them know that, hey, reinforcement's coming up, we're going to work for a little bit. And we know with our students, our ECE population, their length of work is not like our other students, as they can work for 30 minutes and then have a break all the time. We may have students that can, we may have students that need that 5 minute, that 2 minute. So making sure we understand that we're letting them have a choice, and choices are so important for our students, to let them know, hey, I have something to look forward to work for. We're not using those same reinforcers. And also, if these are sent home as well, making sure that we're using those token systems. We can use those first, then those choice boards, those token systems all in conjunction together, or they may have a token system they're used to, and parents can make these on dry erase boards or chalkboards as well, and just reinforce them throughout the time, bringing them up on your screen to let them know, hey guys, we've got through this amount of material, I'm giving everybody a check, or we've made it through this, I'm giving everyone another check, we're done. Go to whatever you chose on your choice board, you can work through. This can cue them and refer them back to this if it's recorded or live, and this helps you remember to praise the student, and you compare that praise with those tokens. The other thing I wanted to remind everybody, and I know I just have, I'm almost out of time, but I wanted to make sure that everybody remembers too that our students may be used to those visual timers. And so I wanted to have links of ways that you can, if you're doing recorded or online instruction, these are some links for online timers that you can put in your sessions. So this can be, okay, if you want to help the students remember that, we may have to but we're going to give a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, or here's your 2 minutes, go do this. This can make sure that they know how to access this. And this might be a visual reminder of what is used in the classroom, because these are a lot of online visual tools and timers that are used for support in classrooms. And just remember that breaks are different than reinforcement. Our students, like Julie had indicated before, that students may need those sensory breaks. So if you have to work those in to say, all right, guys, we've worked through our assignments, you've used reinforcement throughout, that we may also need to work in and remind them, hey, go take a movement break, go take a walk break. And like Julie said, not all environments are the same, but thinking about and reminding those and putting those in live or recorded instruction, that we need to tell those students, hey, let's go take a walk, let's go do this, let's do a movement break, so that we can break up the material and motivate them with our live or recorded instruction, whatever we're doing with our students. All right, so I know that was really quick, but like Julie said, I am happy to answer questions, and I'm Laura.Ferguson at Jefferson County Schools. So just if you have any questions or need any support, feel free to reach out. And I know that we'll be back tomorrow at the same time with some more support for our ECE teachers as well.